Let's be real, paid ads have changed a lot over the years, and keeping up with what actually works can feel like trying to hit a moving target. But lucky for me, and for you, I have had the same brilliant ad strategist in my corner for years, and today she is here to break it all down for us. Kerry Swetmon is a business strategist, a systems nerd, and a master of simplifying the complex world of online advertising. She's not just any expert in Facebook ads, she's been my personal go-to strategist for 8.5 years, helping me navigate the ever-changing digital landscape and making sure my ads are working for me, not against me. The last time Kerry was on the Gold Digger podcast was back in 2017. Yes, you heard that right. And so I think it is more than safe to say that we are overdue for an updated look at the paid ads landscape in 2025. In today's episode, we're diving into what is working right now for paid ads in 2025, what strategies are performing best, the best types of content to test, what's not worth your money or time anymore, and Kerry's biggest tips for maximizing your return on investment. I'm also dropping a shocking fact in this episode that I think is going to blow your mind when it comes to our ad strategy. Whether you're running ads for the first time or looking to fine-tune your paid approach, this episode is jam-packed with gold. Welcome to the Gold Digger podcast, Kerry. Kerry, you know that we're all about actionable strategies on this show, and so I want to dive right into it with you. What is the number one strategy that is working right now for Facebook ads in 2025?
Ooh, that's a good one. It's fluid for one, so I always want everyone to keep that in mind. But social ads can be nuanced, but for 2025, I would say really expanding your visuals. We are testing so many different kinds of graphics right now, from these really bold visuals with bold statements to videos with funky transitions, tons of B-roll video with text overlaid, and of course the storytelling via video and carousel ads. Anything that will make people stop scrolling. And it's best to incorporate a variety of different graphics. And one thing that we saw with your most recent launch was that while video received the most engagement and the most leads, it was static images that garnered the cheapest leads. So we were amenable to both, and we wanted the volume and the lower cost per lead. So I felt like it was a great reminder that you should always test a variety of assets because your audience will pay attention to different things.
Yes. Okay. I love that we're kicking off on this. And I feel like we are consistently, even yesterday, you and I were having a conversation about like trying different things. And I think a lot of times when people think about ads, it's like they're stuck in like either something that worked before, which could be, just a static image that you made in Canva. That's great. But one thing I love about you is like you love to experiment and try different things. You're like, let's just try it. And that has given us so much insight and data, and also given us kind of the creative direction as we're going into bigger launches of like, okay, here is what we need. Here's what we want to try. And it's been so helpful. And so I love that we're kicking off on this. And I think, the main point here is like, if you are somebody that's running paid traffic, no matter where you are paying for it, don't just stick to one style of graphics or videos or something like that. Like mix it up, because we have found, and I feel like every launch, do you think, Kerry, like every launch has kind of a unique angle or something that we're like, that's really peculiar, or that's interesting?
It does. And, while you can kind of see from your historical data trends, it really is like launches, which may feel overwhelming to some people that every launch is kind of different or whatever. But like I said, you can see some trends and feed that back into your marketing. But it really is. Should we talk about the treadmill video? Your treadmill?
Yes, let's talk about it.
We have this B-roll video of you on the treadmill. And no matter where we put it, whether we put it to an evergreen ad or we put it to a live launch, it comes out of the gate just soaring. It's incredible. And we're constantly touching base with each other. Like, what is it about? What's so appealing about this? But
it's also hilarious because in that video, my posture is 100% questionable. And so sometimes I'll like click on it and like the comments will be like, you need to stand up straighter, like all these things. But it's interesting because I think a lot of times people get overwhelmed in the thought of video that it needs to be like highly produced or like, this like crazy interesting thing. And it's literally me walking on a treadmill. And so it is just funny because you don't know what will hit or what will take off. And I just love that, we toss a lot of things out into the ether and then we kind of dial it in as time goes on and as the data comes in. But this should be encouragement to anyone listening of like, you don't need to go hire a video team or anything like that to create compelling ads. You're probably sitting on video clips that could do really well as an ad.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And sometimes, like the treadmill video, we just overlay some text on it. It's hard hitting text. And that along with, the video is what gets people to stop the scroll. So you really have to just try different things. And I love that about you. It's been really just such a pleasure to know that you are and we've had a lot of fun throwing things around and testing different things. So,
and we're not done. I feel like we're just getting started. I feel like we are always curious as to like, okay, what's going to work now or what's next? One thing I'm curious about is there is probably a really great segment of this podcast. Maybe you, the listener right now, are like, I have never put a single dollar into paid ads. They've run a business or they've started a business. Maybe they've gotten their first sale or their 1,000th sale, but they've actually never paid for ads. And so where should somebody begin and why would now be the time to consider starting for them?
You really should always begin with your strategy. And I know that's not as concrete as probably some people will like, but ads will only amplify what is already working. So you want to start there. What are you currently selling well? That's the thing you want to put your ad dollars behind. And always remember that ads are just one piece of the puzzle. That's another thing that you do so well. Ads work best when combined with a solid organic strategy. So whether that's social media or email marketing or both, when you pair your paid and organic strategies, your efforts compound and build this unstoppable momentum that just grows bigger and better. So it's so important to have both. And the last thing that I'll say is that the ad platforms are more integrated and user-friendly than ever before. So don't be afraid to get in there and give it a try. Not only is setting up ads easier, but the various ads managers within each platform have added so many integrations with the other softwares that you're likely already using. So it's much easier than it once was to navigate and get a campaign up and running. And if you're not quite ready for ads yet, that's okay. I would encourage you to focus on building your audience organically through social media and email marketing. And the more you grow your base now, the stronger position you'll be in when you start to run those ads.
Yeah, I love that. I'm doing coaching, just a few different coaching clients offline. And one of them I sent over to you. And I had been talking to her because she is an incredible entrepreneur. She runs a multi-million-dollar business and she's never put a penny into paid ads. And I was blown away. Like I was blown away because she has the system and she basically was asking me like, how do I make this more sustainable? Because I cannot keep running and live launching and doing all of this to get the same results. And so immediately I was like, wow, you already have the proven system. You already have the funnels. You already have the content. You already have the audience. Like imagine what could happen if you put some paid ad dollars behind it. And it was just this realization of like ads can be like throwing gasoline on the fire, but the fire has to exist first, right? Like the flame has to be there for the gasoline to make the impact. And so I love that advice that you're giving of like, get a proven funnel or strategy or sales, a means of making sales, and then consider putting paid ad dollars. And I couldn't agree more with that. So one thing I'm curious, and this is kind of a fun question, but what is something that used to work with Facebook ads that no longer works? Like when I think of the fact that you came on this podcast back in 2017, I would actually say I stand by almost all of the content we talked about. But is there anything that's like totally dead in the world of Facebook ads?
Well, you and I both know that in our heyday, long before each platform was as crowded as they are now, long before the data privacy laws, we used to set up campaigns and get leads for, under 40 cents pretty easily. For most people, I would say that those days are gone. And ultimately, advertising isn't a shortcut. It's a strategy. It's a long game, really. And the brands that succeed focus on long-term growth and consistency, not just the short-term win. So while one and done campaigns are still powerful, I would challenge you to think bigger and more long-term. So while the 40-cent leads may be over, it's still a wonderful strategy.
I talk about this show way too much on the podcast, which is Shark Tank. And I love Shark Tank. I don't know. I'm just obsessed with it. And Coco has started to watch it with me. She's like, Mom, is the person getting the deal? What's happening? I don't like that bald guy. He doesn't seem nice. But I love how much they ask about like, what is your cost per lead and what is your, customer lifetime value and all of these different things. And one thing that I think is really beautiful about ads is for most business owners, especially in the early stages, you can't really say or answer those questions, right? You don't really know, how much am I spending to get a new email subscriber? What is this actually costing me to get somebody to view my sales page? And one thing that I think is so beautiful and under talked about and underutilized, honestly, is the fact that Facebook ads can give you a ton of insight and a ton of data that can really help make sure that like your copy is hitting, that your offers are right, that your pricing is right. Let's talk a little bit about that, because I think that a lot of times people look at paid ads as like the direct line to the consumer, which is the ultimate goal, right? But beyond that, I also think that you're kind of sitting on a gold mine of information that can really help you retailer your strategies or your messaging or your offer.
It's so true. And it's my favorite clients are the ones that get that, right? That aren't looking for the super short term. Obviously, like you said, we're trying to pay for the ads and then some. But it really is a long-term strategy, and it has this compounding effect. And it does. Our results, we are constantly talking about what worked, what didn't work, and then feeding that back into not just your ads, but your emails, your organic social, everything. And so it really is a holistic tool to gain information about what platform people respond to, what type of graphic, what type of copy, what buzzwords, what specific hard-hitting text. We get a lot of things, a lot of headlines and things like that from the results of ads, for sure.
I love that. And I love testing, because I think a lot of entrepreneurs will hear things about like split testing and they're like, how do I even do that? How do I know the data? And it's like, ads are actually a pretty easy way to kind of get some clear winners in some of the decisions that you might be grappling with within your business. So I kind of love that. So one thing that I'm curious about is like, if business owners have been utilizing ads and maybe they're feeling similar shifts to what I've been feeling, what I know my friends have been feeling, what's the best place to start when creating a 2025 Facebook ad strategy?
Number one is this mindset shift. I feel like a lot of people think very narrowly when thinking about paid media. And, we've been touching on this, and instead of realizing that your ad strategy is never truly done, the brands that are winning are constantly testing, optimizing, and iterating. And while that may feel overwhelming, you want to try to adjust your mindset so that you're focusing on that long-term success. And it really, for 2025, it really is about putting different things out there. I mean, like I said, we are testing, these really funky videos with really crazy transitions, all different kinds of, the talking head videos, the B-roll with text overlaid, just all different kinds of things. And I think that is probably going to be the key for 2025, is just to get in there and have your ad strategy be kind of this creative playground for your brand.
One thing that I've been doing that I think might be helpful for somebody that's listening is Kerry and I will sit down before launch and we'll kind of make a laundry list of like, here's what we want for content. And it actually helps me because I'm the person creating my organic content. And so it forces me to batch create a ton of my organic content in before I get into a launch so that Kerry has it to also run ads. And then what's interesting is a lot of times she'll be running my like reels or carousels that I'm going to be posting anyways prior to me posting them, and I can already start to get feedback on that content. Let me tell one funny story that we had on a recent launch. I had created this carousel about starting my podcast. And on one of the slides, I had made a remark of like, I was nervous for my husband to hear me like speaking. And I worded it poorly. I worded it like I thought it made sense in my mind. And so Kerry posts up this carousel, and all of a sudden I'm like clicking on the ad comments, and all these people are like, I hope you left that husband and all this stuff. And I was like, I messaged her and I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't mean that when I said that on that slide. And so we pulled that ad down, and it helped me tweak the copy on that carousel before I posted it on my own feed, which I was like so grateful for. But that's a funny example. But one thing that's helpful on that is I think a lot of times when entrepreneurs get into a launch, whether you're launching a product, a service, or an offer, the last thing you want to be doing is sitting there at 7 p.m. thinking, what am I going to post today? I know I should be posting something and I have nothing to post. And so what has really helped me is knowing the needs in advance, creating them for Kerry, for my ads team, and then okay, when I'm in the launch, I have all the assets prepped and ready to go so that I'm not sitting there creating at the last minute. And that's been so helpful. Do you have anything to add to that?
It's huge. I mean, it really is huge. If you're, into energy, it really makes the energy for a launch, especially, so much better. And there is something to that. I can feel it on my end when people are scrambling, and it just makes for a much better, more seamless launch.
I love that. Yes. Okay, so I want to know, what is your take on ad budgets? So like, what is the minimum someone should spend to actually see results? Like, where do you recommend people putting their dollars and like kind of focusing their effort?
I feel like this is the one question that everyone's always trying to pin me down on for years and years and years. And the answer is, as annoying as I'm going to be, it depends on your goals. And the cool thing about most platforms is that you can get started for very little, $5 a day, or sometimes even less than that. But the truth is, you're not going to get very far with that. And it's going to take a long time to get decent data, basically. So particularly with the way that the algorithm is currently, it really needs to see a certain number of conversions each week in order for it to optimize and continue to produce results. So you don't want to shoot yourself in the foot by not allotting enough budget. Having said that, 99.9% of the time, your ad spend should be tied to your goals. So when people ask me, what should I choose as a budget? I will always say, well, how many leads are you trying to get? Or what is your revenue goal? You know this very well. But when you're first starting out, and until you have some historical data, you will end up kind of picking a number out of thin air. I would say, if you're doing a lead gen campaign, don't do something less than like $30 a day, but very quickly you'll see what your cost per lead is or your cost per purchase. And then it's a simple math equation from there, and you can adjust your budget.
One thing let's talk about, because I don't think people realize this, Kerry, is that it takes a little bit for the ad to like settle and the costs to go down. Can you explain that? Because I think some people might pop up an ad and their cost per lead is higher than they were anticipating, and they panic and shut it off. So let's talk about that process of it, kind of figuring it out and going down, or how you make the call to like pull the plug, like this isn't working.
Right. So you truly do have to give it several days. The way that Facebook in particular pushes their ads out is to a small amount of people, and then they see the results, and then it kind of goes from there. So it does really take several days to optimize. With Pinterest specifically, it takes a while. It takes a good week, I would say, maybe even more, for it to settle down, for it to optimize and kind of become what we call stable. So yeah, you do have to be patient. I'm queen of, especially when we launch, I have to kind of sit on my hands to make sure.
Which is so hard for you to do.
It is. It really is. But yeah, you have to give it some time to optimize. So be patient, don't panic, and then give it some time, and then you can adjust.
Let's talk about Pinterest. I was actually I have a couple different text threads with some other female entrepreneurs, and I was telling them about our recent launch and Pinterest and how we did on our Pinterest ads. Can we talk a little bit about that here? Because I thought this was one of the biggest takeaways for me for 2025.
Yeah. I mean, you and really me too. When I see the reports come across for you for Pinterest for the last few months, it just keeps getting better and better. I mean, it is really fun. It's advertising across multiple platforms will let you reach people at different points in their customer journey. Someone might first discover your brand on Pinterest and then see your Instagram or Facebook ads later on. It creates a more diversified opportunity for you to reach people where they are on across multiple platforms. We have had huge success with Pinterest for your brand, and Pinterest really has made a solid effort lately to connect with advertisers, to educate and evolve their tools. So if you are advertising on Pinterest, there, you'll probably get an email with some sort of rep that you can bounce questions off of and work with to improve your ads. And it's been a really, really fun experience.
Yeah, it was interesting in our last launch. Our Pinterest leads were more affordable than our Facebook ones, and they performed very similarly in terms of their purchasing decisions, which to me was incredibly promising and also just exciting because I do feel like, love it or hate it, certain entrepreneurs are kind of over meta and the control that they have over all of the platforms. And so it is helpful to know there are platforms like LinkedIn, which works really well for B2B businesses. There are platforms like Pinterest that are amazing, especially if you have any visual aspect of your business or you can visually show whatever it is that you're creating or selling. And so I just think too, don't sleep on the fact that there are many different ways that you can do paid strategies. And we have basically kind of tried them all in different areas to figure out where are the people that we're trying to connect with and what does that look like? Do you have anything to add to that, Kerry?
I mean, you said it perfectly. It really, you want to think about your customer. And if you think about who's on Pinterest versus who is on Facebook or Instagram, it's a different person, And so it does allow you for a more diversified experience and to reach people in different places. And I think it's key to a holistic marketing strategy.
Okay, I want to say something that might shock people, but in the 8.5 years that you and I have worked together, how many times have we totally shut off all of our ads?
I don't think we've ever shut off all your ads.
I don't think people realize that we are constantly running ads. In 8.5 years, I don't think there's been a single day that we have not had a paid ad strategy running. And I think some people's minds were just blown because I think that a lot of times people only turn to ads when it's time to sell something. So let's talk about the approach we take, because this is about to save people a lot of time, a lot of frustration, and a lot of money. So can you tell people, what are we running ads to when we're not actively launching something?
Right. So we are constantly running evergreen campaigns. So you are 365 days a year generating leads, engaging people. We just were talking about setting up these new engagement ads for the podcast. I mean, we are constantly engaging new people, reaching out to people, educating, bringing awareness to the brand. And you're right, ads aren't just about selling something, although of course that's the goal. Really, they're about building relationships, which is very similar to your organic strategy. When you show up consistently with this engaging content, your audience feels very connected to your brand. And along with a great organic strategy, ads really gives you the power so that whether it's behind the scenes content, customer stories, influencer collaborations, you can nurture a community that feels connected to your brand in this really fantastic way to increase brand loyalty while significantly increasing your revenue. And I I've touched on this, but a solid ad strategy will compound what you're doing well organically. And we've seen that 100-fold in your business. The two go hand in hand. And when you're doing both together and well, it just grows bigger and better. And I have yet to reach any kind of ceiling on that.
Which is insane. And I hope that people can see too, like, this is a way, and I will say, let's talk about this, Kerry, because I feel like, especially since I became a mom, and you have literally walked with me every single step of that journey, especially since I became a mom, I have such better balance. And when I am able to post reels that say like, hey, I made this amount of money while at the lake at my family, it is through email marketing. But guess where those leads are coming from? They're coming from Facebook ads, right? And so when I think of people that want to have a more sustainable business, that don't want to be constantly online, constantly posting, constantly creating new content, to me, I'm like, if you don't have ads doing that work for you, it's going to be really hard. Let's talk about that a little bit, because I don't think people always connect all of those dots to really recognize how, like you said, my business is running 365 days a year. That doesn't mean I'm personally running 365 days a year. And I think that's a really important distinction, because I know you, the listener, is listening thinking, I don't want to be on 365 days a year. But ads can be like this pseudo employee of your company that is out there marketing for you.
The biggest thing is to shift your mindset around that, is to understand and look at it as this long game. You know, we touched on it, but people do think too narrowly. And I, find myself thinking like, how can I explain this better so that people understand that it really is a long game and it will benefit you. It will become easier and it will compound. And so you're right. Just like the gal that is, has millions of followers that's never run an ad. When you get to a certain level, and even before that, you should start. But when you get to a certain level, there's really not a lot else to turn to without expending more of your own time and resources and effort. So it really does amplify what is already working. And it's so important to just be consistent, to consistently do it.
I remember talking about this back in our past episode, but I want to bring it up today. And so let's talk about the difference of like the cost per lead for a free resource versus the cost per lead for a paid offer. Because again, I think entrepreneurs, they get excited about ads, and the first thing they do is turn on an ad to buy their product. And they start to see like, oh, this is expensive. Maybe they heard the 40-cent lead back in the day and they're like, this is definitely not working for me. And so the majority of our ads that are running, especially ads that are running year round, are going to free resources. So can you kind of break down, and this can be ballpark, or you could use numbers from my business, but just so people can understand, if you had, say, $200 to put towards ads, I would personally argue put it towards growing your email list and serving that list versus putting it towards buying a product.
Right. And the key, you said, is to serve that list. So the alternative to what you're saying is people, put up their sales ads with no kind of nurturing or anything. It's just like, hey, here, buy my $497 product, and it's not selling and they wonder why. Is the people that put up their lead gen campaigns and then they're going, but nobody's buying. And I'm thinking, okay, but what happens after that lead gets on your list? Are you running retargeting ads to push them to the sales page? Are you emailing them? And they're not. They just kind of expect people to find the offer and make a purchase. So it is key to meet people where they are in your sales funnel. For people in our industry, it's a little different for e-commerce people, but for people who are coaches and consultants and have, digital offers, it is so important to meet people where they are in the process. So yes, your cost per leads are across the board. We have one of your courses that pretty much everything in the funnel is just more expensive. And we're always talking about it and what to test next and that sort of thing. But for the most part, your cost per leads are anywhere from $1 something, which is ridiculously cheap, to, $8 a lead. And then, cost per purchase will also vary. So the one that we are always trying to figure out is a more expensive offer. And so it makes sense that the cost per lead and the cost per purchase would be more expensive. But also, because it's a more expensive offer, it makes sense. It still makes sense dollars and cents wise. We can still be profitable with a more expensive lead. So the key is to really know your metrics and to understand, what you can afford to pay for a lead and a purchase.
And I think too, this is such a good place to talk about getting comfortable in knowing some of those numbers, because it makes it a lot easier to stomach, say, spending $30 to get a sale if the sale is $300, right? If you said to any listener, give me $30 and at the end of the day, I'll give you $300, I'm pretty sure everyone would take that. And so if you don't know what that lead is going to turn into, or what the lifetime value of your customer is, or opportunities you have to serve them and then cross-sell to them, it's going to be really hard for you to put money down with confidence, knowing that on the back end, there are so many male entrepreneurs that are in my circle that are bullish when it comes to Facebook ads, where they will spend $1 if they're going to make $1.01. And they will do that all day long. If there is any cent that is a right side for them, they will go for it. And so it's interesting because they know that the value of that lead in their company is going to turn into hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. And that confidence allows them to spend in that way, where the upside doesn't look great on the front end, but on the back end, it proves to be incredibly valuable. And so for people that are listening, I would say start to get comfortable in knowing your numbers, start to figure out what numbers you can pull out, because that will kind of give you the ruler to hold your ads up to and to be able to make confident investing decisions. What's something, Kerry, that you would say in terms of like mindset someone needs to focus on before they go into paid ads or before they scale paid ads? Because I think you probably deal a lot with mindset obstacles as much as you deal with like actual ad objective obstacles.
Right. And it really is that long game. People just look at ads way too narrowly. So it really is just shifting your mindset to the long-term strategy. You said, we've been doing this for 8.5 years, almost 9 years here in a few months, and we've never turned off all of the ads. So that's how people need to view it. It just needs to be part of your ongoing marketing business if you want to compound and grow bigger. That sort of mindset shift, I'm always battling with people. Just recently, a client was saying, let's turn off all of the evergreen ads while we're launching. But I was able to go back to the data and say, hey, look, the last time we launched this, we did run evergreen ads and it was another 10K in revenue. Just because of the momentum, it really just is a long-term game.
It's funny because I, especially this year, I think more than any other year before, I am so focused on long-term results, like not flash in the pan anything. And I think that's where a lot of times I get frustrated with social media, because it's like the monster you need to keep feeding, right? And so what I love about this is that you as a listener, you want your business to be alive in a year, 3 years, 5 years. You wouldn't be here if you didn't. And so this is one of those long-term strategies where it's not the flash in the pan of feeding the beast. It allows you to continue that momentum, to get that visibility. And I don't know about you, Kerry, but like, I feel like it has never been harder to grow on social media. I feel like people that used to be able to easily add, 100 or 1,000 followers a month, everyone kind of feels capped. Like there's just almost a stagnancy. And so ads are an amazing way to get exposed to new audiences in this culture where it feels really, really hard to grow.
Absolutely. Especially for if you feel like you've hit some sort of ceiling. I see this all the time where people, they have these giant audiences and it feels like there's nowhere else to go. You're right that the social stuff it can be very frustrating, and even though it feels counterintuitive, ads does give you more control over that kind of growth. You can look at your historical data and figure out what to do next so that you can continue to grow. We are always focused on bringing new people into the fold.
Yeah, I love that. One thing we should talk about is targeting. Like, what is targeting? What are the best ways to find the right audience in 2025? Have there been any major shifts in this area of ads?
Yeah, I mean, ad platforms, they give us insanely detailed targeting options. You can reach your ideal customer based on everything from their interests and demographics to behaviors to locations and even past purchase habits. For Pinterest, for example, they offer targeting. This is something that you talk a lot about, based on search behavior, meaning your ads are shown to people who are actively looking for content or products like yours. It's really, really powerful. We went through kind of a major shift in 2020 with data privacy laws and the COVID and all that, and so it really has come back around. There's a lot of targeting options were removed, and it was interesting there for a while, but really what the platforms themselves have done is to adjust their algorithms such that we can continue to have these really valuable and helpful targeting options. To me, there are three major categories of targeting. You want to do your warm audiences, which are the people closest to you. They are your followers, your email list, your website visitors, everybody that's already familiar with you in some way. And then there are lookalike audiences, which are my favorite audience. And we can take those warm people, we can upload a list of purchasers and create what's called a lookalike audience for all of the different platforms. And the platform will find you people who look like or who behave like your customers or who those warm people are. And then, of course, there's cold targets, which we also want to reach and bring them into the business and make them aware of the brand. So 3 different options, and it's really, really powerful, and it just continues to get better and better.
And when we're in a launch, you're hitting all of those buckets, right? The warm, the lookalike, and the cold?
Depending on what phase of the launch, absolutely. Yeah, when we're at the top of a launch, we're targeting all of those people, and they all work.
That's pretty amazing. I think too, a lot of times, we're talking about using ads to kind of get people that aren't aware, but there's so much goodness of the people that already know, like, and trust you, of like reminding them and getting your offers in front of them. Because I feel like one of the greatest mistakes that we all make is that we feel like we are constantly talking about our offers and what's available. And the way that the algorithm is organically now, we're missing like our own sister's content, right? Like, we're not seeing it anymore. And so even if you feel like you're talking until you're blue in the face about that thing, I recently just had a friend who I had like texted, and then she's like, sorry, I've been so busy. I've been launching this thing. And I was like, I am like one of your best friends. I follow you religiously. I had no idea this was going on. And so I think it's also just such a great strategy of like getting your actual offers in front of people. And it also just makes it so that you can actually focus more on the organic content and not feel like you're constantly having to sell on the organic places. You get to more show up and serve and connect, which I think is ultimately what people are craving more of. Would you agree?
100%. It's so wild how the organic stuff works and that algorithm works. And it is wonderful to have the opportunity to pay to have awareness, constant awareness. And that is a strategy in and of itself. We do that as well. We are paying to get in front of your already genified audience so that, we are top of mind. It's very strategic.
Is there any final tips that you have for somebody who is navigating the paid ad landscape this year?
My best advice is to stay with it and to know the numbers and to constantly glean what you can, any insights, and then feed that back into your marketing across the board, into your emails, into your paid strategy, test different things and get that information, loop it back in.
Amazing. Where can everybody find you, connect with you, learn more about you? Obviously, I'm your biggest fan. I'm so grateful to not just work with you, but to literally do life with you. And the fact that we are going to be coming up on a decade is kind of insane. You have been such a constant in my life. So where can everybody find you and connect with you?
For sure. I was thinking about that this morning, about what we've seen each other go through in the last almost 9 years. It's such a blessing to me. I love you so much. And my website is System Envy. So it's all one word, systemenvy.com. And then really I'm most active on Instagram, and that is just Kerry Love, Love, all one word, Kerry Love, KerryLove.
Thank you for being here. And thank you so much for sharing. I'm so excited for our listeners to take action, whether big or small, in getting closer to these results, because it is such an amazing way to help you sustainably scale your business and to get in front of the people that you're creating for. So thank you for helping me do that.
Thank you for having me.
I can't even tell you how much I love my team. My team is filled with brilliant, incredible women like Kerry, and it's just crazy to me to think of how much life and business and experiences we've walked through together in our nearly 9 years of being teammates on this journey. She is absolutely brilliant. And I think for a lot of us, we can feel the landscape shifting. Maybe you've never done ads before, but after today's episode, you are determined to figure out what is your funnel and what is the data that you need to confidently invest. Or maybe you've been running ads and you're feeling frustrated with the ever-changing algorithm and frustrated that the old stuff, what used to work, isn't working anymore. I hope today's episode gives you excitement around paid ads and also gives you perspective into what is helping me run this type of business in the way that I'm running it. Because I can tell you, if you want to have a business that can run 24/7, 365, and you don't personally want to, I would argue that paid ads are the way to do that. And in order to get to the place to invest in those ads, you've got to have a proven system that works. And I hope that all my content out there on the internet can help you create that system. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the podcast. If you know someone that could benefit from this show, please send it to them. I would absolutely love for you to share it. And if you haven't yet, take a quick second to rate and review the show. It would mean the absolute world to me. I'm so grateful you spent this time with us today. Until next time, goal diggers, keep on digging your biggest goals.